Hey to Bruce, Miss Jason here at Fab Fit Mom event, doing a special edition with Spear Media and on Twitter. I hope you like what you see. I'm going to show you two wonderful doctors who set up the event. We're going to talk about ways of aligning your spine as well as your core to work on things before baby as well as after. Keep watching and stay awesome.
Yeah, can I get a mocktail?
Sure. And here's one of the lovely doctors that sponsored this wonderful event for the Fab Fit Moms. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Dr. Splichal, podiatrist and hair movement specialist from New York City. I specialize in foot strength, barefoot science, and what's called foot-to-core integration.
I have two questions for you. For those of us who have flat feet, what 3 exercises can you recommend that will strengthen our feet?
Probably the best or most important exercise for people with flat feet is first you have to stretch your calves. So you need to have very flexible ankles so that you can get into the position that supports a stable foot. That would be first. Second exercise is an exercise called short foot. And this is a foot activation exercise that targets the small muscles of your feet. And we have 18 muscles in the bottom of our feet. In a flat foot, they're usually deconditioned in a week. So short foot is that activation exercise where you're just going to simply root the foot into the ground and that will turn on the 18 muscles. The last exercise is going to be strengthening your glutes. So your glutes, even though they're up in your hips, are surprisingly interconnected with your feet, which means strong glutes, strong feet. So typically when people have flat feet, their glutes are very weak. So by doing glute strengthening, you can actually pull a flat foot into a neutral position.
What is something that you can use to strengthen the bottom of your foot? Like say you came back from a hard day of work and your feet are exhausted and you don't have time to really do those 3 main steps.
So the best exercise then would be to roll the bottom of the foot. I typically like a golf ball, even though it might be a little bit hard or painful at first. You can use a tennis ball or a golf ball, a baseball, something like that, and you will roll the bottom of the foot. If you have the golf ball, because it's smaller, you can actually stand on it. And what you're doing is you're releasing the fascia, the tendons, and all of the muscles in the bottom of the foot. That when you do it, it truly feels like you have a total body massage.
And I see you have a book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book and when you created this book?
Yes, so Barefoot Strong, which is available at barefootstrong.com, is a book that I wrote in March, and it focuses on how our feet are our foundation to movement, which means that if you want to move and do the things that you love forever, movement longevity is based on feet and your foundation. So it goes into foot types, talks about shoes, surfaces, exercises, should you be in orthotics, should you not be in an orthotics, and then I talk about the nervous system and actually how our nerves age in our feet and in our hands, and how you have to strengthen those as you age. So our ability to move and do the things we love is based on our foot strength.
So I have a funny question. Now with arch supports, sometimes you have arch supports that tend to come off here that you put into your shoe. Why do they do that instead of making it like a simple insole that goes to your toes?
Yes. So orthotics actually come in 3 different lengths. Okay? The one that you're referencing is more like a sulcus, so it just comes to the ball of the foot.
Okay.
Why? Is because it can fit into more shoes. Right? So it's actually a slimmer, more low profile orthotic. So some people prefer it. If you're thinking like a women's dress shoe or a men's dress shoe, typical athletic sneaker orthotics go the entire way. So that's fine.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to see you. And thank you for sharing and being one of the wonderful ladies in charge of this program.
Thank you very much.
Hey to Brisk, we're here with our second lovely doctor who's a part of this lovely Fab Fit Mom event. And so you're here.
I'm Kiberd. massage, personal training, nutrition, and acupuncture. So full service, multidisciplinary clinic, and we see lots of pregnant women before, during, after. We're very movement focused, and yeah.
Alright, so I have two questions for you. First question, what is a good yoga pose that you can strengthen your spine, align your back without, so that you won't injure yourself in the long run? Because doing regular exercise, it's very easy to injure your back if you don't have the proper form.
I think a good warm-up would be a cat-cow, so you're on your hands and knees, arching the spine, which we lose if we're sitting a lot. We're kind of stuck like this all day. So it's nice to arch the spine and then rounding out and just pulsating with the breath, moving with the breath through those two poses. That would be a good one. And specifically like a pose like while you're pregnant?
In general.
Oh, in general. Something to strengthen the spine. Warrior 2 is really good. Trying to create a really strong foundation through the legs and then finding the lift through the chest. Trying to reverse all the kind of like gravity, sitting, hold, traveling in New York. Down dog is always a good one. Yeah, depending on your hip and your shoulder flexibility. Yeah.
How do you incorporate nutrition into your pregnancy?
Nutrition?
Yes.
Okay. So I used to eat very, very paleo, so like no carbs, no sugar. And then first trimester, I was like bitten by the carb monster. So I wasn't so to avoid nausea and to keep my energy up, I ate some carbs. I tried to eat rice, some quinoa, some like steel cut kale. And now that I'm in my second and moving into my third trimester, trying to go back to more healthy eating. So like, especially now that it's fall and it's colder out, trying to avoid any sort of vegetables or raw foods because those will make you harder to digest. So now that it's coming into fall, like cooked root vegetables, seasonal vegetables, protein, soups, like really grounding, hearty food to like fill me up. Because as you get bigger, you can't eat as much. Like you kind of have to eat smaller and more frequently. So it's nice to like whatever you're going to take in to have it be really nutritious. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this event. Thank you for sharing. And yes, this was our lovely doctor. And as always, keep watching.
So urban wellness.
Do you want me to go to
all the way down? So wider. Good. Elbows go to the inside of your legs. You're going to press those knees open. Good. So this is preparing you for pushing. The ideal pushing spot. Try this. Go ahead and lift your chest. Good. Progressions of this would be like a TRX squat, a goblet squat, like a weight. Good. So take an inhale. Exhale, stand up. Good. So those are my 3 recommendations.
So I don't know if anyone has any flat foot, right? And if anyone, big arm raise in the back. So our feet have over 100 ligaments in them, which means that as your body is releasing relaxin throughout pregnancy, and even after pregnancy, the relaxin stays within your system for up to a year in some women. That means that that's a lot of opportunity for all of your ligaments to become very loose. So what I see is that a lot of women start getting changes in their foot size, their foot width. I don't know if anyone has noticed that. You just had a baby. If you had any changes in your feet? Yes? Yes. So usually we go to a larger foot or a larger shoe size because of that. I'm a strong believer. Normally, I'm into anti-orthotics, minimal footwear, barefoot movement. However, when you have that much relaxin going through your body, you actually want to use something that's going to keep your foot supported. Just like you think of the different bands. If you do not support your foot throughout pregnancy and the relaxin being released, you are going to start to get widening and lengthening of your foot. If you have any bunions or anything, any shifts in the digits, those could also increase because of how flexible your feet are getting. So just remember that and just think supportive footwear, maybe a little arch support, something to keep the shape of your foot as you're going through these changes. And then that would be tied in post-pregnancy as well. Okay? So during pregnancy, did you want to?
Sure. Can we start?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to take you through a yoga sequence that have modifications for while you're pregnant. So let's have everyone start in hands and knees again. And there's a card in back and in your gift bags, like all the different poses. Just to start, some things you want to avoid. So you want to avoid after the first trimester, so once you get into the second and the third, laying on your back. So pressure the baby, cut off the blood supply to the uterus. You want to avoid any sort of hot yoga. It takes about twice as long for the baby to cool down as it does mom, and it can cause neural tube defects, sometimes a higher incidence of like cut palate, with getting really hot. You want to avoid twists, you want to avoid hardcore back bends, because that can separate the rectus abdominis down the midline. Okay, so let's get on hands and knees. Shoulders are right over the wrist, hips are over the knees. Good, so as you inhale, you're going to look forward. And for those of us who are pregnant, you will feel a stretch through your body. That's just a ligament, so just go as far as you can go. Good, and then as you exhale, you pull your belly towards your spine and round out. Good, so moving with the breath. So first the breath comes in, you're going to try to arch your spine. So even though we try to avoid back bends in yoga, this is a gentle modification. And as you exhale, pushing the floor away, you will look towards your belly. You might even feel engagement of your core. Good, so try this 3 more times with your breath. As you look forward, especially those of us sit, try and soften that spot right between your shoulder blades. Good, and then as you exhale, round. Good, 2 more times. As your fingers put your knuckles down, create like a nice connection to the floor. Good, so starting to warm the core, you're just going to reach opposite arm, opposite leg. For those of us who are pregnant, you will feel wobbly. So you're going to try and minimize the wobble. So you're going to reach right arm, left leg. Good, you're going to slide it back down. Reach to the left side. So you want to picture like the finest glass of wine is right on your seat right there. You do not want to drop it, because you want to drink it after you give birth. No, you know I do. You're too long. Good. So really trying to keep the core zipped in, a little bit of curve in your back, pushing the floor away for some shoulder stability. Good, and then one more time. Great. So go ahead, come up to stand. Let's just have everyone go wide-legged facing this wall. So hardcore forward folds are not going to feel good when you're pregnant because you feel like you're squishing your baby. So this is a nice modification. If you have blocks, that would be even better. So feet are going to be parallel to the sides of the mat. Picture like you're drawing energy up from your feet all the way up towards the tops of your hips. You can go hands on the hips, take a big inhale, lift the chest. Good. As you exhale, dive. You're going to touch the floor. So let's do a couple breaths here. You can press into the floor. That will also help engage the core. You're going to inhale, long spine. If you're reaching your collarbones towards spine. And exhaling, dive. So there's not a lot of forward folds. Get a nice hamstring and inner thigh stretches. It's hard when you're pregnant. So let's have you go inhale, strong in the legs, all the way up to stand. So you're just going to turn your right toes towards the windows. So back foot's parallel to the back edge of the mat. Front foot, that heel, is going to, you draw a line from your front heel to your back arch. So when we're not pregnant, we can take like a nice long stance. Sometimes when we are pregnant, our balance is off. So it's nice to take a shorter stance. Okay, so go ahead, just bend into your front knee. Knee's going to get stacked right over the ankle. Okay, and then arms go long, just do warrior 2 here. Good. So you want to avoid the knee traveling really far in front. Just try to have that knee right over the ankle. Good. And then here, take an inhale, lift from your hips all the way up to your armpits. Good. And then exhale, soften the shoulders down and back. Good. So go ahead and put your forearm on your front thigh. You're going to reach that left arm long out the window. So if you feel really tight, you can just reach your arm high to the sky. If you feel okay, reaching out the window. Good, so try this. You're going to press through the back edge of your back foot. Right, so especially as we sit all day, the sides of our body, especially with extra weight on the front, will get really tight. So as you push the back edge of your back foot, you'll feel a deepening and lengthening through that side body on the left. Good. Inhale up to stand. Go ahead, switch to feet. So go ahead and just point those left toes towards the back of the room. Good. And then bend deep into that front knee. Good. So those of us who are not pregnant, you can take a nice long stance and get right in there. Just step your back foot back. Good. And then forearm on the front thigh. Good. Right arm reaches towards the back of the room. Good. And then notice if your breath is getting stuck or it feels really shallow and contracted. Just the same thing like we did in the beginning. You're going to inhale through the nose, belly expands, exhaling out, pressing all the breath out. So same thing, press through that back edge of that back foot. Make that back leg really strong. You might feel even more stretch through that right side of your body. So you're breathing space between every single rib there. Good. Inhale back up to stand. Good. Just parallel the feet again. Take a dive. Fold over one more time. So let's go here. Inhale, long spine. Just picture like you're reaching your collarbones straight towards the wall. Like you're doing a little back bend here. You're going to exhale, dive your chest, and then your head. Good. 2 more times, just like that. And then exhale, dive. One more. Okay, inhale all the way up to stand. So one more pose. Those of you who are not pregnant, we just do this in the middle of the room. If you guys want to get towards like a wall, just for balance. It's nice to do a figure 4. You can do it in the chair, you can do it standing here. It's nice to open up the hips. So go ahead, you're going to cross your right ankle over your left knee. And you're just going to start to sit your hips back. Put your palms right on your shin here. So try this. First, tuck your tailbone under, like you're rounding out your back. You'll feel less of a stretch. Good. So now stick your booty out. Right. Start to feel more in your hip. Good. Inhale to stand. Nice big is seated. Good. So go ahead, cross your left ankle over. Good. Start to sit your hips back. Hands on the shin. Good. As you're like working that year or 2 before you get pregnant, just to work on balance, just in general. Good. And set the foot down. Good. Just inhale, arms go high to the sky. Good. And exhale, release. So I used to practice about an hour every day. I probably practice like 20 minutes nowadays. And so that is part of my practice. So I take up twists, hardcore back bends, try and keep it nice and like cold, avoid laying on my back. So that would be my other practice. Yeah. Excellent.
When you start to lengthen your muscle fibers, they don't fire then. Right? So immediately after pregnancy, your core is not firing, which means everything is at risk of being stressed, which means your knees, your feet, your backs, your shoulder, your entire body can get thrown out because your center of stability is not working. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back down and we're going to do a pelvic floor activation. If you are currently pregnant, you may do this seated. So you could do it in a seated position and you could just activate your pelvic floor. You could do this on a physio ball. If you are not pregnant, then you can go onto your back, and we'll do it on the back, okay? So either seated or on the back. And we're gonna go into a position like this, okay? What I want you to do is to put your hands on your hips. So even if you're seated or lying, you wanna have your hands on your hips. I want you to find a neutral pelvis, which means if you are currently pregnant, you're probably thrown into an anterior tilt because of everything being in front of your center of gravity. Okay? So a neutral spine. What you're then going to do is take your thumbs and put them on your hip bones. So your thumbs go on your hip bones, and then your 2 pointer fingers are going to go below your belly button. So now you're in that lower triangle area, which is where your deepest muscles fire, okay? The sensation that you should be feeling under here when you engage your pelvic floor and your deep core should be tension, okay? So what that tension feels like is if you keep your thumbs on your hip bones and your fingers below your belly button and you were to cough, you're going to feel tension in those muscles, okay? So hands are there and if you cough, good cough. You should feel that there was tension, right? That's the tension that you should feel when you engage your pelvic floor, okay? Nothing should move. You should be able to isolate out your deep core, okay? So now we're going to take our hands and bring it back to our hips. Stay in neutral, and then if you want to be a little bit forward, you can so that you can feel that the deep core is engaging. To engage your pelvic floor, what you're going to focus on is if you imagine the base of your pelvis is like the face of a clock, okay? Which means face of the clock, your pubic symphysis is going to be 12 o'clock. Your tailbone is going to be 6, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So you have that clock that you are visualizing, okay? Using your pelvic floor, you are going to draw 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So you're going to imagine closing that gap, okay? And then you're going to close 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, close that gap, and then you are going to lift through the crown of your head, okay? And we're going to shut our eyes when we do it because there's a lot of mind-muscle connection. If you actually just visualize engaging muscles, you actually become stronger. They show that there's actual nerve firing in those muscles if you just visualize. That's why a lot of athletes visualize when they're doing different movements, okay? So we're on our back and we're seated. Hands are on your hips, or if you want to keep your thumbs on your hip bone and your finger down. You're in neutral pelvis, your eyes are shut. You're going to use your pelvic floor. So this is not just doing a Kegel, but it's similar to a Kegel. You're going to draw 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. When you did that, you should feel that there was a contraction in your posterior pelvic floor, which is what's connected to your levator ani. So it's going to be your posterior, okay? When you draw 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you want to hold the tension and then lift through the crown of your head. As you do that, your pelvis should not move, your rib cage does not move. Nothing moves, you're isolating out your deep core, and then you want to release it. Okay, so if we do that again, draw 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, really try to feel that in the posterior pelvic floor. 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, feel that focused tension, and then lift through the crown of your head. You're going to hold the tension, breathe, relax, enjoy it, and then release it. Okay, we're going to add on to that. So what you're going to do, if you look for one moment, is you're going to engage, and then you're going to lift one of your feet just a millimeter off of the floor, right? So it's just going to float off of the floor. If you could imagine that you were on a physio ball and you were doing this, right? And you were doing that same thing, you would just lift the foot a little bit off the ground and then come back down. What you're trying to do is engage the core and isolate out the leg with nothing else moving. Okay? And then we'll do it to the other leg, and then the second progression that we'll do is you are going to stay here and you're just going to slide your leg out and slide your leg back in. Okay? You specifically, because you're wanting, like, everything just feels different, this is what you would want to do. Okay? So if we go back, your eyes are shut, you're seated or you're on your back. Imagine the face of your clock, your hands are on your hips. Remember to breathe. Draw 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. 3 o'clock to 9, and then lift through the crown of your head. Stay exactly as you are, hold that tension, and lift your right foot 1 millimeter off of the floor. Try to feel that your pelvis does not move, engage, still breathe, and then bring the foot down, and then release. Again, 12, 6, 3, 9, lift through the crown of your head. Stay exactly as you are, lift your left foot, make sure that pelvis does not move, still breathe, bring it down, and then release. We'll go to the second progression. So 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Feel the engagement, and now you're going to slide your right leg straight out. So just slide that heel across the ground, feel it engage. And then you're going to pull it in through the strength of your pelvic floor, and then release. Okay, last time, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, lift through the crown of your head. And then to your left side, you're going to slide your left leg straight. Feel that your pelvis does not move, and then pull it back in through the strength of your pelvic floor. Perfect, yeah. And then you're just going to slide it right back in, and then good release. Okay? Perfect. That's what you want to do to start waking up the pelvic floor. Because our foot is connected to the pelvic floor, if you do the foot exercises that I'm going to show you, and your pelvic floor is not firing, you're not going to get that connection. So even though you're doing all the foot strengthening and you're trying to get it, if this is not awake, right, we're not going to get it, okay? Very important to do this. Other progressions that you could do for the pelvic floor is you could do a roll down. So if you come up into a seated position again, and we're going to do a roll down. So a lot of the concerns of post-pregnancy is that if you get a diastasis, and that means that you have a separation between your six-pack muscles, right, over here and over here, and they separate from each other, okay? If you have a separation that is greater than 3 fingers, right, that would be something that would probably require surgery. If it's 3 fingers or less, you can use exercises and correctives to try to bring your six-pack back together, okay? The one that I just showed you is one of the best to wake up. That's not just for post-pregnancy, that is for everybody, right? If you feel like your lower back is bothering you, everything communicates and connects through your pelvic floor. Our glutes connect through your pelvic floor, okay? So it's a very powerful exercise and it didn't take long at all, okay? So the roll down, which I'll show you as well, and then we'll stand up and start doing our short foot, is you're gonna start in a position here. The most important thing, and if you are pregnant now, you could do kind of the tuck and the lift, is if you're here, you want to start in that neutral pelvis position. If you just go from this to tucking your tailbone under, right, you just did a posterior tilt. That posterior tilt back up to here, if you're doing it controlled, you're using your deepest abdominal fibers, right? So we're not just dropping, right, and coming up, you're actually feeling that you're rolling and you're scooping under, that's your lower triangle muscles, and then you bring it back up. Remembering that you always want to breathe. A lot of people cheat through their core by holding their breath. If you hold your breath, it's like fake stability. That's why a lot of people, if you like lift weights or punch or do anything and you hold your breath, that tells you right away that your body's not stable. You're holding your breath to become stable, okay? So if we were to continue down, what I want you to do, and again, be mindful if you are pregnant, and don't go all the way down if you're pregnant, is do the posterior tilt and then bring your chin to your chest. I want you to stare at your belly button the entire time that we do this. You're going to imagine melting down one vertebra at a time, using the deepest abdominals to slow you down. You're going to keep staring at your belly button till you go all the way down. Your head goes down to the mat. Okay, your heels are going to stay on the floor. You're going to look at your belly button, keep your heels on the ground, and then you're going to peel yourself off of the floor. But you got to keep looking at your belly button. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking, and then you bring it up. Okay? Post-pregnancy, so we'll remember this for after. Right? So we'll do it one more time, okay? So we'll collapse down, do the posterior tilt, bring your chin to your chest, and then again you're going to melt down. Just feel that you're leading through the tuck of your pelvis. Each vertebrae is going to slowly melt down to the ground. All the way down, your head goes down to the ground. Bring your chin back to the chest. Look at your belly button, keep looking at your belly button, and then peel yourself off of the floor. So you're peeling all the way up. If anyone has ever done Pilates and they do a roll down, you're holding on to something. If you feel like you need a little bit of an assistance, if you have a band that's wrapped onto something like a monster band or some sort of resistance, then as you go down, it's going to kind of give you a little bit of a lift, okay? But that melt down is very important. Something that you want to look for as far as core strength is if you feel like, say you're doing a crunch or you're doing something like this, and your stomach pushes out, that should be a sign to you that that's also like fake stability. Our abs pull in. If you ever push out, that's you trying to increase your stability by pushing the abdominals out. Right? So it's a way that we kind of cheat. It's almost like holding your breath. Stomach should always be pulling in. Okay? So, no, yes,
So when we're going back up, our center should be in?
yes,
Okay.
yes. If you feel like you have to push out to do it, that's you kind of compensating for the lack of strength to come up. So then I would use a band or something, okay? I love planks, but I feel like using planks to stabilize, a lot of people will do that. Anything, right, where you just kind of hold a plank, right? You're not necessarily engaging the right muscles. So doing more exercises like this is going to help you much more, right? That activation, okay? Then we're going to stand up and we're going to do our foot activation and connect it to our pelvic floor. And then we're going to do our deep squat that we did earlier, and we're going to use short foot with it. Okay, so the big thing with barefoot training and foot strengthening is that you actually want to do it barefoot. So if you have socks on, we're going to take those off. And if you're on a mat, we're actually going to step off of the mat. Okay? And the reason is that there are thousands of receptors on the bottom of our feet. Our feet are very, very sensitive. When you put socks on, or you stand on anything like a yoga mat or something that's soft, you actually start to block the sensitivity of the receptors in the foot, which means you're not getting the benefit that we're trying to get from it. So what I'm going to teach you now is the exercise to activate and wake up your foot. This exercise connects your foot to your pelvic floor. And since we just woke up our pelvic floor, we should all feel it. Okay? So what I want you to do is place one foot, and so you're going to get kind of in a staggered stance. Okay, so one leg is in front of the other. The front knee, you always want to keep it bent. So don't be in a locked out knee, be in a soft knee. Think of that front leg as kind of like your power leg. Okay? You want to start by finding your foot tripod. Foot tripod, for anyone who's taken yoga, is going to be underneath the big toe, the fifth toe, and the heel. That is your foot tripod. Okay? You're going to lift your digits, spread them out, and put them back down onto the ground. So the wider toe spread that you have, the more sensory information you're bringing in, so it's actually better. Okay? If you spread your toes, now you can feel the ground underneath. If you actually just pay attention to the foot and the ground that's beneath your foot, you might actually start to feel that there's like texture. Ooh, there's texture to this foot. We don't ever pay attention to it, but that's actually giving you a lot of information, and it's talking to your core. Okay? So we're here, we have our foot tripod. If you just give a little tug to your foot, do you feel how it's like suction down to the ground? You want to use that to your advantage. Okay? The exercise I'm going to teach you is called short foot. And the short foot activates your foot, but it also activates your core. To do short foot, what you're going to do is you're going to push your big toe and your little toes down into the ground. Okay? So you're just going to simply push the digits down into the ground. When you do that, you should feel, or you may start to feel, that the arch in the side of your foot increases. You feel like the transverse arch increases. You maybe feel that the muscles in your foot are actually engaging. Do you guys feel that? Yes? Okay. Perfect. And then release it. Let's try it on the other side, and then we'll add to it. So, same stance. Okay, so that knee is bent. Find your foot tripod, spread your digits, place them back down onto the ground. Right? Maybe get a little tug, wake up the foot, right? Connect. Feel the texture of the wood. Okay? And then push your digits down into the ground. Right? So all you're doing is rooting yourself into the ground. There's no pulling of the digits, there's no rolling to one side of the foot. It's just you becoming grounded. Okay? And then we're going to take this to the squat that we did earlier. Okay? Perfect. If we go back to the other side, assume your position, foot tripod, knee bent, spread the digits. Now what you're going to do is you're going to engage short foot and then release it. So I just want you to keep engaging it, releasing it, engaging it, releasing it. All you're doing is pushing your digits down, backing off. Push your digits down, back off. As you do that, I want you to start to pay attention to your pelvic floor and your deep hip. Does anyone feel that they feel like their pelvic floor or something is happening up here? Does anyone feel any sort of connection? Yes? It's happening even if you don't feel it. Okay? We will add to it, don't worry. Okay? What is happening and what you can train to happen is every time you do this grounded position, I actually feel my pelvic floor fire. I feel my deep hip fire. I feel something going on here, okay? And then I release it. Let's do to the other side, and then we're gonna add to it. And trust me, you will feel it when we start doing the different squats, okay? So, knees bent, spread the foot. Perfect. Push your big toe down into the ground, and then release. Engage, release, right? Focus on the big toe, back off. Big toe down, back off. Do you guys feel it on the same side, or do you feel it similar to the other side? Okay, we're gonna add to it, we're gonna add to it, okay? If you don't feel it, don't worry, okay? Now bring it so that you're on both feet, okay? I always tell my patients to do short foot, which is what I'm teaching you now, 1 foot at a time. Reason being is that our mind and our muscles have to connect to each other. So when you're new to strengthening your foot, if you don't know what short foot feels like and you're trying to do both feet, it's very difficult, which means you probably won't do it. Okay, so we're going to do short foot both feet now. So have a little bend in your knees. Make sure you find a neutral pelvis. Spread your digits. Place them back down onto the ground. And just focus on both big toes. So you're pushing both big toes down into the ground. Okay? And then go to release both big toes. Both big toes down. And then release. A visual that I like to give when I teach children how to do this, because I want children to seniors doing this exercise because of how powerful it is. If you imagine that somebody had a piece of paper underneath your toes, and you were like, don't let me pull the piece of paper out, right? That's what I want you to imagine that you're doing. You're just trying to hold a piece of paper down so they can't pull it, okay? So there's no curling of the digits. Yes?
I just have a good question, because it's hard for me on one foot because I have a bunion.
Yes.
What should I be pushing on then? If I
So
push,
there
then I feel
is
my toe
something, there's a little splint called bunion booty. And what it does is it pulls the toe out to the side. I know when I get patients with Dr. Kiberd, she'll tell you about bunion booty. So when it goes around the toe and then it pulls it out and it goes around and it's going to put you in the position so you can engage the muscle.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Okay? But yes, it's harder to engage this when you have a bunion or you have flat feet. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to engage your pelvic floor, standing, doing our short foot. And I want you to see if you feel a difference. Okay? So, we got short foot on both feet. What I want you to do is relax your feet. Don't do short foot. Okay? Engage your pelvic floor in the same way that we did when we were on our back. So if you need to shut your eyes, standing, balance, watch out. Okay? Or just try to visualize that you're drawing the 12 to 6, the 3 to 9, and then you're going to lift. Yes?
I just came from work, so what
Yes.
is doing this?
So what we're going to do is, okay. So what we're doing is we're visualizing that our pelvic floor is like the face of a clock.
Okay.
Okay? This is 12, 6,
Okay.
3, 9.
Okay.
And what you're going to do is you're going to draw 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock using your pelvic floor.
Okay.
Okay? And then 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then you're going to lift.
Okay.
Eventually what it should feel like is you're just lifting. Your pelvic floor is an anti-gravity muscle, which means that when you engage it, you actually take pressure. You're kind of lighter. That's how dancers are so light on their feet, is they're lifting with their pelvic floor. Okay? So, we're back to here. Engage your pelvic floor, right? You should feel tension where we had our hands. So if your hands are here, you should feel tension in that lower triangle when you do your pelvic floor engagement. Does everybody feel it when they're standing up? Here we go. And then we're going to start squatting, moving. So, engage your pelvic floor, hold the tension. Now push both big toes down into the ground. You should feel, did anyone feel like they became much more grounded, much stronger? Did your pelvic floor engagement become more? Right? You guys felt that? Yes? Hopefully, this is awesome to feel this. Because now you're connecting, which means when you learn this connection, when we do the squat that we did earlier, you're going to tie it into that. Okay? So we'll do that again. So we'll bring our legs a little bit wider. Back into our squat position that we did earlier, Dr. Kiberd. So we're here. Okay, and then we're going to go down into our squat. Okay, remember our squat?
It's a lot more, seriously, like, wow.
I know. Well, we can get you back. Okay, so we'll go back down into our squat. Okay, so we're here, right? As you're holding in your squat, right, what become difficult is you're down here. To get from here back to here, you really want to be pushing up from the ground up, okay? Which means we're down in our squat, right? Actually connect your big toe down into the ground. Connect your feet. I don't know if anyone, when they squatted the first time, if they actually thought about their feet. Maybe they were just thinking about coming up. Push your toes down into the ground. So you're going to actually connect your toes. Do short foot when you're in the squat, okay? The way that you're going to come up, keep your toes down, and then imagine lifting through your pelvic floor. So toes go down, and then you're going to lift through your pelvic floor. So you're lifting this way, okay? And then we go right back down again. Right, so we go down into that position, right? You can relax your feet as you go down if you want. Connect your toes, so actually push and feel, acknowledge the ground that you're pushing against, okay? Remember the pelvic floor, your pelvic floor lifts. So ground your toes, and then here we go again. So you're gonna lift, exhale, lift through your pelvic floor, and you're gonna lift up. Did that feel different than maybe the first time that you did it? Mm-hmm. Right? So that connection, remember that your feet and your core are connected. So even if you just start your day, I tell my patients to do short foot while brushing their teeth, right? So you could be here brushing your teeth, short footing, connection, right, short foot, short foot, short foot. The way that you're gonna get even more into your glutes, sounds crazy, is that you're gonna be here short footing, standing on one leg, I'm brushing your teeth, I'm rubbing your belly, right? We're brushing your teeth, okay? If you're cooking or doing something, short foot. If you're like, oh God, I hate balancing, unfortunately, we balance with every time we take a step and we walk, so balance is really important, right? That's why a lot of what I teach is balance training. So you could progress short foot core, engage it, now actually do a balance here, right? Then that's going to progress and you're actually going to do a little squat and then up, okay? So we'll try a little squat. If you want to hold onto a wall, you can. If you don't want to and you want to rock it out, center the floor, you can. Or you could do a kickstand squat, right? So instead of us doing, this is kind of like an Asian squat, you're going all the way down. Here, you're going to come to here and then come up. But we're going to keep our short foot, okay? So we're here, keep your grounded, find your foot tripod, okay? Bring it down into a squat. And it doesn't have to be deep, right? You're just in the squat, you're connecting with your core. I want you to push your big toe down into the ground. Really push it down and connect. You should feel something happening in your hip. You just became very stable. Hold that connection and then push up. And then relax it, right? And then we'll do it again. Find the bottom of your squat. Perfect. Engage your core. Push your big toe down into the ground. Feel that connection. Your foot, your glute, and your core are talking to each other. Push up and then release. And then we'll try it on the other side, okay? So we're here. Find the same thing. Squat position. Perfect, right? Push your big toe down into the ground, connect your pelvic floor, it talks to each other. Feel the stability into the hip, hold it, exhale, push, and then release it. Again.
Who do a lot of core work and sometimes they feel like they just can't feel an integration. And sometimes, especially if you've had a C-section, they're cutting through the lowest part of your abdominal muscles, and that contracture and that scar tissue is actually weaker than your actual tissue, and sometimes it will, especially when you're healing, right, after you leave the hospital, you kind of like hunch in this position, right, you don't walk out like, C-section scar, oh. So on top of doing a lot of foot to core sequencing and core work, it's important to, once the scar has closed and healed, to do some soft tissue work on the scar and to get assessed. We recommend that if people who have C-section scars and they're feeling difficulty integrating their core, come into the office, and we recommend using a magnesium oil that helps soften the scar, and to start to gently massage around the scar. And you'll feel newer scar tissue will feel like a little piece of grain of sand underneath the skin. So you can just try and work that spot out and try and smooth it out. And scar tissue that's been there for longer, like 9 months or more, will feel really leathery. And a lot of that contraction from the scar can create this kind of feeling. So it'll be harder to back bend, it'll be harder to integrate. So it's nice to work that out before we have people work it out and then do their core work so that the core starts to integrate. That's one thing that we see a lot. That's nice to get assessed. And then the other thing is sometimes, especially after a natural birth, there'll be scar tissue internally, and it will feel like we've had patients who 6 to 8 months out, they'll still have pain with sex. Like it'll feel like you're hitting a wall. So sometimes there's scar tissue internally that needs to get worked out. So that's another thing to look at. And sometimes if you're doing lots of core integration, but there's scar tissue, you're not getting the full contraction of the musculature. So it's just another thing to consider. And no one ever tells you afterwards. Everyone's like, baby's okay, you're okay. To get assessed. That we do at our clinic, Urban Wellness Clinic. We send lots of people to Emily just to integrate for core sequencing. We do a lot of core stuff too. So.
Good. Do you guys address the